The sky above the Karathi homeworld burned orange and red. Elder Ven stood at the window of the great hall and watched the distant lights move across the heavens. They were not stars. Stars did not move like hungry animals searching for food. The Vorath swarm had come. Ven was old, even by Karathi standards. His pale blue skin had grown thin with age, and his large dark eyes had seen many things. But he had never seen war. No Karathi had. Their world was gentle. Their sun was warm but not harsh. Their gravity was light. Their people had evolved to think, to create, to dream. They had never needed to fight. Now they would die because of it. A young Karathi rushed into the hall. It was Scholar Lorik, keeper of the ancient records. His thin body shook with fear as he approached the elder. "The Vorath fleet numbers over 10,000 ships," Lorik said. His voice was barely a whisper. "They will reach our world in 6 rotations." Ven closed his eyes. 10,000 ships. The Karathi had no military. They had transport vessels and science craft. They had nothing that could fight. "We must call for help," Ven said. "The Galactic conquered. They promised to protect member worlds." Lorik's face grew pale. "Elder, I have tried. The Concord stations are not responding. I fear the Vorath have already destroyed them." Ven felt his heart sink. The Concord was their only hope. Without them, who would save the Karathi? "There is one other option," Lorik said slowly. He seemed afraid to speak the words. "The ancient beacon." Ven turned to look at the young scholar. The beacon was old technology, built by their ancestors long before the Karathi joined the Concord. It was designed to send a signal across all frequencies, to reach anyone who might hear. "The beacon has not been used in 300 cycles," Ven said. "We do not even know if it works." "It is our only chance," Lorik replied. Ven looked back at the window. The lights in the sky grew closer. In 6 rotations, those lights would rain fire upon his world. His people would scream. His cities would burn. His children would die. "Activate the beacon," Ven commanded. The ancient machine sat deep beneath the capital city. It was covered in dust and forgotten by all but the oldest scholars. Lorik worked through the night to bring it back to life. Wires sparked. Screens flickered. The old technology groaned like a sleeping giant waking from a long dream. Finally, the beacon hummed with power. "It is ready," Lorik said. His hands trembled over the controls. "What message should I send?" Ven thought for a moment. What could he say? How could he express the terror of his people in simple words? "Tell them we are dying," Ven said. "Tell them we need help. Tell them where we are and what hunts us. Send everything." Lorik pressed the button. The beacon screamed into the void of space. It sent coordinates. It sent images of the Vorath swarm. It sent biological data of the enemy. It sent the desperate plea of a dying world. The signal traveled in all directions. It passed through conquered space. It flew beyond the mapped regions of the galaxy. It entered territories marked with warning signs and danger symbols. It reached places that civilized species had agreed never to visit. One such place was a small yellow star with 8 planets. The 3rd planet from this star was covered in blue water and green land. The galactic charts marked this region with a single warning: quarantine zone. Death world, do not approach. On this world, in a building called Fleet Command, a young man sat at his desk. His name was Minho Bayek. He was a lieutenant in the United Earth Defense Fleet, and his job was to listen to the stars. Most nights were quiet. Humanity had been alone for a long time. The galaxy had found them 200 years ago and decided they were too dangerous to know. So humans stayed in their corner of space and watched and waited. Tonight was different. Minho's screen lit up with incoming data. At first, he thought it was an error. The signal was weak and strange, filled with frequencies that human equipment barely recognized. But as he cleaned up the transmission, words began to form. Not human words, alien words. A language that existed in old databases from humanity's brief contact with the galaxy. Minho translated the message. His hands began to shake. "Help us," the message said. "We are the Kirathi. The Vorath swarm comes to destroy our world. We have no weapons. We have no ships. We are going to die. Please, if anyone can hear this, please help us." Attached to the message were coordinates and images. Minho saw the Vorath fleet. He saw the peaceful Kirathi cities. He saw the projected timeline of destruction. 6 days. In 6 days, an entire species would be erased from existence. Minho stood from his desk and ran down the corridor. He burst into the office of his commanding officer. Admiral Taiho Park looked up from his work with calm eyes. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen many battles. "Lieutenant," the admiral said, "what is it?" Minho handed him the datapad. "Sir, we received a signal. It's a distress call. An alien species is under attack. They're asking for help." Admiral Park read the message. His expression did not change. He studied the coordinates and the images of the enemy fleet. He was quiet for a long time. "Sir," Minho said, "they're going to die. All of them. And we're the only ones who heard the call." The admiral set down the datapad. He walked to his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the quarantine line, a world full of innocent beings waited for death. The galaxy had called humanity monsters. They had locked them away like dangerous animals. For 200 years, humans had been alone. But now someone was calling for help. Admiral Park turned back to Minho. His eyes were hard as stone. "Wake the fleet," he said. The message spread through Earth like fire through dry grass. Military bases woke up. Soldiers received orders. Pilots ran to their ships. For the first time in 200 years, the United Earth Defense Fleet prepared for war, but not a war for Earth, a war for strangers. On the dark side of Earth's moon, massive doors opened in the gray rock. Ships began to rise from underground hangars. They were not pretty ships. They were not elegant or smooth like the vessels other species built. Human ships were ugly. They were covered in thick armor and heavy weapons. They looked like they were built by people who expected to be hit hard and wanted to hit back harder. Captain Yuna Kim stood on the bridge of the flagship. The ship was called the Horizon's Edge, and it was the largest vessel in the human fleet. Yuna was a small woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded this ship for 10 years, but she had never taken it beyond the quarantine line. Today, that would change. "All stations report ready," her first officer announced. "The fleet is assembled, 47 ships, 20,000 personnel." Yuna nodded. It was not a large force by galactic standards, but galactic standards did not account for humans. Admiral Park's face appeared on the main screen. He was aboard the command vessel, coordinating the entire operation. "The situation is simple," the admiral said. His voice was broadcast to every ship in the fleet. "A species called the Kirathi has sent a distress call. They are under attack by the Vorath swarm. The Vorath are a conquering species. They destroy worlds and consume everything. In 5 days, the Kirathi will be extinct unless someone helps them." Yuna watched her crew listen. Their faces were serious. They understood what this mission meant. "The Galactic Concord will not help," the admiral continued. "They fear the Vorath. They have decided to sacrifice the Kirathi to save themselves. But we are not the Concord. We are human. And when someone asks us for help, we answer." The crew of the Horizon's Edge stood straighter. Pride burned in their eyes. "We will cross the quarantine line," Admiral Park said. "We will enter Kirathi space. We will engage the Vorath swarm. And we will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the innocent in our presence." He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter but no less powerful. "They called us monsters. They locked us away because they were afraid. Perhaps they were right to be afraid. But today, we choose what kind of monsters we will be. We will be the monsters that protect. We will be the nightmare that defends the weak. We will be humanity. The communication ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then Yuna spoke to her crew. You heard the Admiral. Set course for the Karathi system. Maximum speed. The fleet moved as one. 47 ships turned toward the stars and accelerated. They reached the edge of the quarantine zone within hours. Ancient warning buoys floated in space, broadcasting messages in 100 languages. Warning. Quarantine zone. Death world species beyond this point. Do not enter. Extreme danger. The human fleet ignored the warnings and crossed the line. In hyperspace, Yuna had time to think. She walked through her ship and talked to her crew. She wanted to understand why they had volunteered for this mission. She found Sergeant Hana Cho in the training room. Hana was a ground forces commander, built like a weapon, with scars on her arms and fire in her eyes. She was beating a training dummy with her bare hands. Sergeant, Yuna said, why are you here? Hana stopped and wiped sweat from her face. Same reason as everyone else, Captain. Someone needs help. We don't know these Karathi, Yuna said. They're not our people. Their government probably supported our quarantine. Why should we die for them? Hana thought about this. Then she smiled. It was not a gentle smile. Captain, I grew up on Earth. You know what Earth is like. Earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, predators, disease. Everything on our planet tries to kill us every single day. We survived because we learned to fight. We learned to protect each other. We learned that when someone is in trouble, you help them. You don't ask questions. You don't wait for thanks. You just help. She hit the training dummy one more time, hard enough to crack its surface. The Karathi are in trouble, Hana continued. The rest of the galaxy is too scared to help. But we're not scared. We've never been scared. That's why we're here. Yuna understood. She thanked the sergeant and continued her walk. In another part of the ship, she found Lieutenant Minho Bayek studying alien languages. He was the one who had received the distress call. He was the reason the fleet was moving. Lieutenant, Yuna said, are you ready to speak to aliens? Minho looked nervous. I hope so, Captain. I've been studying Karathi language patterns all night. They seem like peaceful people, gentle, fragile. They're going to be terrified of us, Yuna said. Minho nodded sadly. I know. They sent a call for help, and we're what they got. Deathworlders, the monsters from the quarantine zone. He was quiet for a moment. Captain, do you think we can make them understand that we're not here to hurt them? Yuna put her hand on his shoulder. That's your job, Lieutenant. You're going to be the voice of humanity. Make it a good one. The fleet traveled for 3 days. On the 4th day, they exited hyperspace at the edge of the Karathi system. The planet hung in the distance like a blue and green jewel. It was beautiful, peaceful. Between the fleet and the planet, the Vorath swarm waited. 10,000 ships, dark and twisted, like insects made of metal. They moved in swirling patterns, hungry and eager. On the Karathi homeworld, Scholar Lorik detected the new arrivals. He checked the energy signatures and felt his blood turn to ice. Elder Ven, he said, his voice shaking. Ships have arrived, but they are not Concord vessels. Ven hurried to the scanner. He looked at the symbols on the approaching fleet. He searched the old databases for a match. He found it. Death World Species 001, Planet of Origin, Earth, Status, Quarantined, Danger Level, Extreme, Do Not Engage, Do Not Contact, Avoid at all costs. Ven's hearts nearly stopped. They had called for salvation. Instead, they had summoned the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Karathi had called the monsters from the Death World, and the monsters had answered. Elder Ven stood frozen before the scanner screen. Behind him, Other Karathi officials had gathered. They stared at the data with wide, terrified eyes. "Deathworlders," someone whispered. "The humans have come." Panic began to spread. The Karathi had heard stories about humans. Everyone in the galaxy had. They came from a world of poison and fire. Their planet was covered in predators. Their own bodies were weapons. They could survive injuries that would kill any other species. They ate the flesh of other creatures. They smiled with their teeth, like animals preparing to bite. "We are doomed," a Karathi official cried. "We called for help and summoned death itself." Ven raised his hand for silence. His heart beat fast, but he forced himself to stay calm. He was the elder. His people needed him to be strong. "We do not know their intentions," Ven said. "Perhaps they will fight the Vorath. Perhaps they will fight us. But we cannot panic. We must wait and see." Scholar Lorik pointed at the screen. "Elder, look. The human fleet is moving. They are positioning themselves between our planet and the Vorath swarm." It was true. The 47 human ships had formed a line. They stood like a wall between the Karathi world and the 10,000 Vorath vessels. Then a communication signal arrived. "They are trying to contact us," Lorik said. His hands shook as he opened the channel. A voice filled the room. It spoke in the Karathi language, but the accent was strange and heavy. "This is Lieutenant Minho Bayek of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Please respond." The room was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Ven stepped forward and activated the response channel. His voice trembled slightly. "This is Elder Ven of the Karathi people. We did not expect you. We did not know our signal would reach your world." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again. "We understand. You called for help, and we answered. The Vorath swarm will not touch your planet. We will make sure of it." Ven could not believe what he was hearing. "You wish to protect us? But why? The galaxy has kept your kind isolated. We have never helped you. Why would you help us?" The pause was longer this time. When the human replied, his voice was softer. "Because you asked. That is reason enough." An hour later, a small shuttle left the human flagship and approached the Karathi homeworld. Elder Ven and Scholar Lorik waited at the landing platform. They had been asked to meet the human delegation. Neither of them wanted to go. But someone had to speak for the Karathi. The shuttle landed. The door opened. Sergeant Hana Cho stepped out first. She was not tall by human standards, but to the Karathi, she looked like a giant. Her body was thick with muscle. Her skin was tan and covered in small scars. She moved with the easy grace of a predator. Lorik felt his legs go weak. He had studied humans in the old records, but seeing one in person was different. Everything about her screamed danger. Behind Hana came Lieutenant Minho Bayek. He was thinner than the sergeant, with a gentle face and kind eyes. He moved slowly, carefully, as if he knew he was frightening them. "Elder Ven," Minho said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for meeting with us. I know this must be strange for you." Ven forced himself to speak. "You are the first humans we have ever seen. The first any Karathi has seen. I will admit we are afraid." Minho nodded. "I understand. We know what the galaxy thinks of us. We know the stories. I want you to know that we are not here to harm you. We are here only to help." Sergeant Hana stepped forward. Lorik flinched backward. Hana noticed this and stopped. Her expression softened. "Hey," she said quietly. "I know I look scary. Most species think we look scary, but I promise you, little friend, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to make sure nothing else hurts you either." She held out her hand, palm up. It was a human gesture of peace. Lorik stared at the hand. He had read about human hands. They could crush bone. They could tear flesh. They had evolved to grab and hold and kill, but this hand was offered in friendship. Slowly, carefully, Lorik reached out and touched Hana's palm. Her skin was warm and rough. Her fingers could have wrapped around his entire arm. But she was gentle. So incredibly gentle. "There," Hana said, smiling. She was careful not to show her teeth. "See? Nothing to worry about." Ven watched this exchange with amazement. Perhaps the humans were not the monsters the galaxy believed them to be. The group moved to a meeting hall. Along the way, the humans saw Kirathi citizens watching from windows and doorways. The Kirathi stared with huge, frightened eyes. Minho waved to them. Some of the children waved back, curious despite their fear. In the meeting hall, Admiral Park's image appeared on a large screen. He spoke to Elder Ven directly. "Elder, the Vorath fleet will attack within 2 days. My ships are ready to engage them. But I need to know more about your people. Do you have any defenses? Any weapons at all?" Ven shook his head sadly. "We have nothing. Our people have never known war. We have no soldiers, no weapons. We have nothing to fight with." Admiral Park nodded slowly. He did not seem surprised. "Then we will fight for you," he said simply. "Keep your people calm. Keep them inside. When the battle begins, stay away from windows." "There may be ground forces if the Vorath break through our lines." "And if they do break through?" Ven asked. Sergeant Hana answered, "Then my soldiers will be waiting for them. No Vorath will touch a single Kirathi. I give you my word." At that moment, a new signal interrupted them. It came from the Vorath fleet. A terrible face appeared on screen. Warlord Drax, leader of the swarm. He was massive and insect-like, with sharp claws and compound eyes filled with hunger. "Kirathi," Drax said, his voice like grinding metal. "I see you have found new friends. It does not matter. Surrender your world now, and I will kill you quickly. Resist, and I will make your death last for generations." Admiral Park stepped into view of the camera. His face was calm. His voice was steady. "You are speaking to Admiral Teho Park of the United Earth Defense Fleet. The Kirathi are under our protection. Leave this system now, and you will live. Stay, and you will learn why the galaxy fears the third planet from Sol." Drax laughed. The sound was horrible, like breaking glass. "Deathworlders," he spat. "I have heard of your kind. Dangerous, yes, but you are few. We are many. You cannot stop the swarm." Admiral Park did not blink. "Then come and try," he said. "We will be waiting." The communication ended. Silence filled the room. Lorik looked at the humans. They did not seem afraid. If anything, they seemed eager. Hana cracked her knuckles and grinned. "Finally," she said. "Something worth punching." The Vorath swarm came like a storm of metal and death. 10,000 ships moved toward the Kirathi homeworld, their weapons charging, their soldiers ready to feast. Between them and the planet stood 47 human vessels. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Captain Yuna Kim watched the enemy approach. Her crew was silent. Their hands were steady on their controls. They had trained their entire lives for this moment. "All ships," Yuna said into the fleet channel. "This is Captain Kim. The enemy outnumbers us 200 to 1. By any logical measure, we should lose." She paused and smiled. "Good thing we're not logical. All ships, attack." The human fleet surged forward. They did not wait for the enemy to come to them. They charged directly into the heart of the swarm. The first Vorath ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles screamed toward the human vessels. Any other species would have tried to dodge, to run, to escape. The humans flew straight into the fire. The horizon's edge took 3 direct hits. Alarms screamed. Damage reports flooded in. Yuna ignored them all. "Return fire," she ordered. "All weapons." The human ship unleashed its power. Massive cannons roared. Missiles launched in waves. The first Vorath vessel exploded. Then another. Then 10 more. The battle became chaos. Human pilots flew their fighters in patterns that should have been impossible. They turned at angles that would break the bones of any other species. They pulled maneuvers that created forces strong enough to kill. But humans were born on a heavy world. Their bodies were built to survive pressure and pain. Lieutenant Minho Bayek worked at his station, coordinating communications between ships. He watched as a human fighter was hit and began to spin out of control. The pilot should have ejected. Instead, she stabilized her damaged craft and flew it directly into a Vorath warship. The explosion destroyed both vessels. Minho felt tears in his eyes. That pilot had given her life to take one more enemy ship with her. "That's who we are," he whispered to himself. "That's what we do." On the Karathi homeworld, Scholar Lorik watched the battle through orbital sensors. He could not believe what he was seeing. The human ships were being damaged. Some were being destroyed. But they kept fighting. They absorbed punishment that would cripple any other fleet, and they kept firing, kept advancing, kept killing. "They are insane," Lorik said softly. "Completely insane." Elder Ven stood beside him. "No," the old Karathi said. "They are not insane. They are simply human. This is what they evolved to be. This is what their world made them." In space, Captain Yuna led a squadron of ships directly into the Vorath command formation. Her goal was the enemy flagship, where Warlord Drax commanded the swarm. "All ships, follow me," she ordered. "We're cutting off the head." Her squadron punched through the enemy lines. Ships exploded around her. Fire and debris filled the void, but Yuna pushed forward. The Vorath flagship loomed ahead. It was massive, 10 times the size of the horizon's edge. Its weapons turned toward her ship. "Sergeant Cho," Yuna called into her communicator. "Prepare your team. We're going in." Down in the ship's hangar, Sergeant Hana Cho gathered her soldiers. 200 humans in heavy armor carrying weapons designed to punch through anything. "Listen up," Hana shouted. "We're boarding the enemy flagship. The Vorath are big, mean, and ugly. They have claws that can cut through steel. They have teeth that can bite through bone. They think they're the scariest things in the galaxy." She smiled and showed her teeth. "Let's prove them wrong." The horizon's edge rammed into the Vorath flagship. Metal screamed as the two ships connected. Boarding tubes extended. Airlocks opened. Hana led the charge. The Vorath were waiting. They were horrifying creatures, twice the size of humans, covered in hard shells and sharp edges. They screamed battle cries and attacked. Hana met the first Vorath with her fists. The creature swung its claws at her head. She ducked, stepped inside its guard, and punched it in the thorax with all her strength. The Vorath's shell cracked. The creature fell. Behind her, human soldiers opened fire. Vorath warriors fell in waves. But more kept coming, pouring from every corridor, every doorway. Hana took a claw strike across her arm. The wound was deep. Blood ran down her skin. She ignored it. "Is that all you've got?" she shouted at the Vorath. "My grandmother hits harder than that." She grabbed the Vorath that had wounded her and threw it into its companions. Then she drew her combat knife and kept fighting. The battle raged through the flagship. Humans and Vorath fought in corridors, in control rooms, in engine compartments. The Vorath were strong and fast, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Humans did not stop when they were wounded. They did not retreat when they were outnumbered. They just kept fighting, kept pushing, kept killing. In the command center, Warlord Drax received reports of the boarding action. His compound eyes widened with something he had never felt before. Fear. "What are these creatures?" he demanded. "How can they take such damage and keep fighting?" His officers had no answers. Then the door to the command center exploded inward. Admiral Tejo Park walked through the smoke. He was alone. His uniform was torn and burned. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. In his hand, he held a single blade. Drax rose from his command throne. He was 3 times the size of the human. His claws could cut through ship armor. "You think you can defeat me, Deathworlder?" Drax hissed. "I am Warlord Drax. I have conquered 1,000 worlds. I have killed millions." Admiral Park looked at the massive alien with calm eyes. "I'm Tejo Park," he said simply. "I'm a father of 2. I like gardening. And I'm going to cut off your head." Drax attacked with the speed of a striking snake. His claws whistled through the air. Park moved. To Karathi eyes watching through security cameras, it would have looked impossible. The human slipped past the claws, stepped inside the warlord's guard, and drove his blade into the gap between Drax's armored plates. The warlord screamed. Park pulled the blade free and struck again, and again. Each blow was precise, each movement efficient. Drax fell to his knees. Green blood poured from his wounds. He looked up at the human with dying eyes. What are you?" he whispered. Park looked down at him without pity. "I already told you," he said. "I'm a father, and you threaten children." The final blow was quick. With their warlord dead, the Vorath swarm broke. Ships began to flee. The organized attack became a desperate retreat. On the planet's surface, Vorath ground forces that had landed to begin the harvest suddenly found themselves alone. They looked up and saw their fleet running. Then they looked down and saw human soldiers advancing toward them. Sergeant Hana Cho led the ground assault. She was covered in wounds. Her armor was broken. Her face was streaked with blood and dirt. She was smiling. "You're alone now," she called out to the Vorath. "Your ships are gone. Your warlord is dead. Surrender and you live. Fight and you don't." The Vorath chose to fight. It was over in minutes. When the last Vorath fell, Hana stood in the middle of the battlefield. She looked up at the sky where human ships were chasing the last enemy vessels out of the system. Her communicator crackled. "Sergeant Cho, this is Admiral Park. Report." Hana wiped blood from her eyes. "Surface is clear, sir," she said. "Any other problems need solving?" There was a pause. Then the Admiral laughed, a rare and tired sound. "No, Sergeant. I think we're done for today. Good work." Hana looked around at the Karathi coming out of their shelters. They stared at the human soldiers with huge, amazed eyes. "Yeah," Hana said softly to herself. "Good work." 3 days after the battle, the Karathi homeworld was still trying to understand what had happened. The skies were clear. The Vorath swarm had fled to the far edges of the galaxy, broken and terrified. The bodies of their ground forces had been collected and burned. The human ships orbited peacefully above, making repairs and tending to their wounded. Elder Ven walked through the capital city. Everywhere he looked, he saw his people staring at the sky. They had prepared for death. Instead, they had witnessed something impossible. Monsters had saved them. Ven found Admiral Tejo Park standing alone in a public garden. The human was looking at the Karathi flowers. They were delicate things, pale blue and purple, swaying gently in the breeze. "Admiral," Ven said as he approached, "I have been looking for you." Park turned and bowed slightly. "Elder Ven, your world is beautiful. These flowers are unlike anything we have on Earth." Ven stood beside the human. He was still afraid. Every instinct in his ancient body screamed that this creature was dangerous. But he forced himself to stay. "Admiral, I must ask you something. It has been troubling me since you arrived." Park nodded. "Ask." "Why?" Ven spread his thin arms wide. "Why did you come? Why did you risk your lives for us? Your people have been isolated for 200 years. The galaxy shunned you. We supported that decision. We voted to keep your kind quarantined. We treated you like animals in a cage. And yet, when we called for help, you came. Why? Park was quiet for a long moment. He reached out and gently touched one of the flowers. When I was a boy, he said, my father taught me something. He said that the measure of a person is not how they treat those who can help them. It is how they treat those who cannot help them. He looked at Ven with calm, kind eyes. Your people could not help us. You had nothing to offer. You could not even defend yourselves. But you were in trouble. Someone was going to hurt you. And we could stop it, he shrugged. That's enough reason, that's always enough reason. Ven felt tears forming in his large eyes. He had spent his whole life believing that humans were monsters. He had believed the stories. He had accepted the quarantine. He had been wrong. I am sorry, Ven said quietly. I am sorry for how the galaxy has treated your kind. I am sorry for my part in it. Park placed his hand on the elder's shoulder. The touch was gentle, careful. You don't need to apologize, Park said. You were afraid. Fear makes people do strange things. But now you've seen the truth. That's what matters. News of the battle spread across the galaxy in days. Every species heard the story. The Karathi had been attacked. The Galactic Concord had done nothing. And then the Deathworlders came. The humans had crossed the quarantine line. They had fought an enemy that outnumbered them 200 to 1. They had killed Warlord Drax. They had saved an entire civilization, and they had asked for nothing in return. The Galactic Concord was in chaos. Some species demanded that the quarantine be restored. The humans were dangerous, they said. They must be contained. But other species began to whisper different things. The Vorath had been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries. No one had been able to stop them. Now they were broken, running scared. Maybe the humans were not monsters. Maybe they were guardians. Messages began arriving at Earth. Secret communications from species who had never dared to contact the quarantine zone before. If the Vorath come for us, will you answer? Our world is threatened. Can you help? We have heard what you did for the Karathi. Would you do the same for us? Captain Yuna Kim read these messages aboard the Horizon's Edge. Her ship was damaged, but repairs were going well. Many of her crew had been wounded. 11 had died. But they had won. She brought the messages to Admiral Park. Sir, the galaxy is reaching out to us. They want our protection. Park read the messages slowly. His face was thoughtful. We cannot save everyone, he said. We are one species, one fleet. We cannot be everywhere. I know, Yuna replied, but we can try. We can show them that we're willing to help. Maybe that will be enough. Park stood and walked to the window. Stars filled the void beyond. Somewhere out there, other species were suffering. Other worlds were being threatened. Captain, he said, the galaxy has called us monsters for 200 years. They may never stop being afraid of us. They may never truly accept us. Yuna joined him at the window. I know, sir. Does that change anything? Park shook his head slowly. No. We will be what we are. We will help those who need help. We will fight for those who cannot fight. And if the galaxy chooses to fear us while we protect them, so be it. He turned to face her. We will be the thing they're afraid of. The thing that stands between them and the dark. On the Karathi homeworld, Scholar Lorik began to work on something new. He designed a monument to stand in the central plaza of the capital city. It took weeks to build, but when it was finished, it was beautiful. The monument showed a human hand reaching down from above. Below the hand, a Karathi figure reached up. The two were almost touching, almost connected. At the base of the monument, Lorik carved an inscription. He wrote it in every language he knew. They came from the death world. They came when no one else would. They came not to conquer, but to protect. They are humanity. Karathi children would gather at the monument in the years that followed. They would look up at the human hand and ask their parents what it meant. And their parents would tell them the story of how their world had faced destruction, how they had called out into the void, how monsters had answered. The best kind of monsters, the kind that saved you. Far across the galaxy, in the dark spaces between stars, other predator species watched and waited. They had seen what happened to the Vorath. They had seen the Deathworlders fight. For the first time in thousands of years, they hesitated. The galaxy had new protectors now, strange, terrifying protectors who came from a poisonous world of fire and storms. Protectors who should not exist, who defied all logic, who refused to stay in their quarantine. Protectors who asked for nothing except the chance to help. On Earth, life went on. Children went to school. Families gathered for meals. People lived their ordinary lives, never knowing that their species had changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy. But in the military bases and government halls, plans were being made. The quarantine was over. Humanity would take its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as threats, as guardians. Admiral Park returned to Earth and visited his family. His daughter asked him what the aliens were like. "Scared," he told her. "They were scared of us at first, but then they learned that we came to help, and they weren't scared anymore." His daughter thought about this. "Are we the good guys, Dad?" Park smiled and pulled her into a hug. "I hope so," he said. "I really hope so." Above Earth, the repaired ships of the defense fleet returned to their positions. They watched the stars. They waited. And somewhere out in the galaxy, another distress call began to transmit. Another world was in trouble. Another species needed help. The humans would answer. They always would.